button.
Yeah, we're live. Okay, so we're gonna show. We have something. Kevin Allen does not know about this new segment that we've introduced called X Addict. So it's what X Addict is I find something very old but interesting.
So you found Kevin Allen. Good job.
Kevin's our thing today. Yeah. No, but yesterday we found a bubble hockey game from 1991 that was put out by the World Wrestling Federation.
Yes.
That was created. So all the turn hockey guys are WWF wrestlers. Very funny. So I have something later that's media related that I want to see if Kevin has. You probably have whatever I'm going to just show you're going to have in your house, but I found it online, so it's kind of interesting. So
do you want me to share mine now, or do you want to?
Yeah, you can share yours then. We'll wait.
Okay, it's weird because
yours media related too or different.
No, it's a ticket. It's a ticket stub, but it's weird how I got it, and it's odd because somebody I lived next to when I had an apartment in the city of Buffalo found out that I was a hockey writer, and he had a whole slew of old hockey newses, which is like a find of like gold doubloons at the bottom of the ocean. So he gave me like 3, 4, 5 years of old hockey newses.
Oh man, that's great.
And then he continued to give me also any like memorabilia he had, because he was just and he was a Sabres season ticket holder in 1975 when they made the finals for the first time. And the way they did the tickets, they didn't do the number of the series, like Game 7 versus Montreal. They did Game 7 of the home games that they had. So this was Game 7 against Montreal. It wasn't the 7th game. I think it was Game 3 or Game 4 of that series. And he was sitting in the lower section and ended up sitting next to Gordie Howe and Alex Delvecchio of the Detroit Red Wings. For some reason they were there, doesn't know. And he's got Alex Delvecchio's signature on the back of the ticket.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most
bonus. That's Mike's Addict. A bonus today, X Addict, because we'll get to that later. But that's awesome. My little pre-show thing it has to do with dogs. Okay, because I know Kevin has the dog thing going on, or has had the dog thing going on. Do you have a dog currently, Kevin, or no?
I do not. No, Rocky passed away at age 17 about 3 months ago. So
I know, and it's just so sad. Rocky was
3 that are sleeping currently.
Yeah, right now they are.
Right.
Yeah, and again, of course, Russ is a lot of Russ's life, and his wife's life is about saving animals. But
Kaya is a Twitter star.
Yeah, and she's passed her therapy dog test. So now she can go into hospitals and places like that and just cheer people up. She loves to do that.
I've shared many stories of Rocky, but to friends of mine, Kevin's dog, because Kevin told me some great stories. I love how that dog was one of the last known dogs, in the country that just roamed around the neighborhood.
That's exactly right. Yeah, he was. I like to call him. He was a free dog.
He was a free range dog.
he did, I have 5 acres, and he wandered on it, and he was the oldest dog in my vet's practice, and her theory is that the amount of exercise he get. I mean, he would just we'd let him out the door, and he'd go visit the neighbors and get their dogs and run in the woods. And
yeah, that's nothing like free range chicken, though.
What you needed to do, you never got a chance to do this, but if you have what you need to do, and I'm really mad I didn't think of this, like when you told me the story before, is to attach a GoPro camera to his collar one day. Where the heck he did go?
And he did not like geese who violated our airspace. He survived 2 encounters with skunks. He lived a full and rich life, right?
He really did.
That's awesome. But let me tell you this story. Many people may have seen this, but I did a story with Brian Bickle, and just about how he was, his life was has been changed, obviously, by an MS diagnosis. And what I didn't know when I did the story is that he rescues pit bulls. I wondered if it was a sign, having done that story, that it might be time for me to get another pit bull. Rocky obviously was
there you go.
Mix,
you do. You have to have a dog. I mean, I'm
sure I will get one. I basically have said to my wife, maybe we should wait to the summer.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good time.
I mean, and it's like my dog story for today is that I'm working out of the house here, taking care of my son, who's here and at school, mostly here, and 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 I hear that I'm just about ready to start the show, and I hear the dogs going crazy outside. We have a my hockey rink, which is legendary, right? The hockey rink outside.
Oh, it's legendary.
It's
called a pool as well.
It's now become a fox den. We have a family of 5 living under it. 5 foxes, and they're awesome. And I set up a GoPro literally every night at from 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it runs for 6 hours, and we tape from 1 to 7 every night. And then before we're going to sleep, my son, who loves nature, we watch, and we get these incredible views of these baby foxes, the dad fox bringing back a dead squirrel to feed them, all kinds of crazy things. It's really neat. So
sounds yummy.
So I'm afraid of leaving my little Shih Tzu out there for too long. Okay,
no, that's fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah, for sure.
Fortunately, our yard is portioned off with a fence that we have a section, because the foxes are in the section that is usually dog free, because that's where we don't want to clean up that area. So we have when the dogs go out, they go onto a fenced area in the other corner of the yard, so they can't really get over there. But I'm still nervous about it. So
the Shih Tzu would qualify as dessert.
Yeah.
Isn't there a proverb about the fox and the Shih Tzu?
I think that was an SCTV skit a long time ago. So anyway, so I go up today knowing that no one's been in the house for a long time, and knowing that I didn't let the dogs outside, and here are the dogs going crazy outside, and realizing that they'd probably been let out several hours ago, and it's been pouring rain all day. All right, so this is I mean, they're hiding underneath things, and it's fine, everything that, but this happens 5 minutes before 1 o'clock, and we've just cleaned our floors, so the dogs are coming in. I got handling 2 dogs coming in from 2 wet dogs coming in from the outside. That is something. And then to get them after you have actually showered and tried to look half decent for the show today, I was covered in mud. I had to change all of my clothes again right before this. But anyway, it's totally fine. We know what the fox say. Actually, the fox say, rah, 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 rah.
It's a really annoying song, but I thought it was apropos.
There are 2 fox things. We have a lot of fox in our neighborhood, and I think they're awesome animals. I think they're really neat animals. I know they're
put Fox on the Run as the.
I was just typing that in, Russ. I was just typing that in.
That's a bad song too.
I know that a lot of people don't like the pest. You probably have tons of fox up where you are, right, Kevin?
I do. We got everything here. Pretty much my my land is we've seen everything from deer to coyote to everything imaginable. There's probably 20 rabbits that live in my yard, and we had groundhogs living under my shed, and it's a game preserve up here. So,
we have the star-nosed mole, which is a really ugly animal.
Yeah, those things are odd.
They're really odd. They don't have eyes, and they have just a nose.
Yeah,
star nose. The underneath the rink, I used to call the rink up there the Bert the dog, our old dog. I call it the Bert the Dog Memorial Rink, the Bert the Dog and Star Nosed Mole Memorial Rink, because that's just I thought that rink was just, whenever I go up there, tons of Star Nosed Mole. Well, which explains why the foxes have loved it. It's amazing. So the foxes are enjoying it. So anyway, we got our own little ecosystem outside. But let's start with the show.
Okay, Peter, you follow me.
Gotcha.
There we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, April 25th. Man, it feels like it's got to be later than Wednesday. It's Wednesday, April 25th, 2018.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Peter Tessier.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast, the big show, the big panel we get out here once in a while. Some of my favorite shows, we get all of you guys on at the same time. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And
you know what that means, Russ? He hates it when it's just me and you.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what he said.
Yeah. But we have a couple Game 7s to talk about before we get into the Western Conference, which I really want to talk about. But Mike, you got something before that? Perhaps?
No, 1 Game 7.
Well, I'm sorry, we have 1 Game 7, yes, and thank God we have 1 Game 7 because the first round needed a Game 7.
Yeah.
Kevin, I said it yesterday. This could be the worst first round that I can remember. I mean, there's really has not been any drama. And even in the Toronto series, it really hasn't. I mean, it'll be dramatic tonight because it's Game 7, but they were down 3-1. Boston seemed to sit back a little bit. They've come back and tied the series, but there hasn't been a ton of drama in this series, and I don't think there's been in any other series either.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go quite that far as maybe the worst first round, but I would say that I agree with you. When you have 2 sweeps like we had, But I thought the Columbus Washington series was good. I enjoyed that series from what I've seen of it, and I thought Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, was kind of fun for a while. So, but I know what you're saying. It's been lacking. And we could have easily, if there had been no Game 7 to this series, then it really could have been a yawner by comparison to some of the first rounds. And usually the first round is often the best round.
Yeah, it is. And that to me, what really made it not as exciting is not necessarily the quick series, but the amount of games that weren't even close. There were a lot of, and it went both ways too. The Philly Pittsburgh series got good, but it didn't get good until the end. The first couple games were blowouts on both sides, and then the last game was a fun game, and the game before that went down to the last second. That was a good game. But besides that, there were a lot of games, and really the only series that felt like the playoffs to me, honestly, was Vegas and LA, where those games felt like playoff games to me. They had a certain intensity that was higher, I felt, than anywhere else. And I don't know if that was because LA just did not want to lose to an expansion team, or the fact that Vegas was doing what they were doing and the fact that goalies were standing on their crazy heads, But that series, that intensity, I just didn't see. Winnipeg,
Columbus and Washington, I thought was go back and forth.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean it had all those overtime games,
but it was a bizarre series because the first 4 games the home team didn't win,
right.
and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Kevin, and Russ. I know that you had mentioned earlier about torts. I mean, I really think Columbus let Washington off the hook. I think Columbus had that series. Not to say that they were home and cooled out, but I thought they had the advantage. They had the overtime in Game 3. They lost that game on a sort of weird goal, and then after that, it was really like Washington taking over. And I really think Columbus, had an opportunity to advance and win their first playoff series, and they sort of didn't come up big. And I don't know, Russ, what did Torts say?
Yeah, the fallout of it is, John Tortorella got asked about all of that and got asked about Matt Calvert, who is an impending UFA. And he said Matt Calvert's play was like a toilet seat. It was up and down. And, and Calvert had 3 goals and he had a game winner and he had 4 points. But this is the kind of stuff that Tortorella does when he knows somebody's on the way out. And, it does cause a little dissension. They, right now, it's an important offseason for Columbus because they're still weak at the center position. They have a couple of bad contracts in Dubinsky and Savard. I doubt they'll be able to do anything about Dubinsky. Savard, maybe, if they want to. And so this is like a big offseason, and now, Torts sort of lit the fuse a bit.
And Jack Johnson's probably going to be gone.
What we need to do before we get on to these tonight's game, Kevin needs to settle this bet because he's the only one I trust. To settle this absolute bet here.
That's scary.
We had this discussion yesterday. Okay. And Peter, definitely chime in on this as well. We had this discussion yesterday that I am fully of belief that in the Vegas LA series, the LA Kings were the favorite in the series because more people picked them. And to me, that is the definition of being a favorite.
No,
and then their belief is,
the counter argument was Vegas was first place in the Pacific. And the only reason that people were making the niche pick of the LA Kings, who was the underdog in the series, is because Vegas is an expansion team, and everybody thought, like I did when taking Los Angeles, that
were a favorite, right? Because
but the literal definition. I mean, I want to go with Yak, but I can't because the literal definition of favorite is what the Las Vegas odds makers say, and they said the Vegas Golden Knights.
All right, but then can we not say that the Vegas odds makers have conflicts of interest in this particular series? I mean,
Vegas doesn't care about the home team. It doesn't care.
But more people are betting Vegas than any other, so they have to go that way.
Sure.
They can't. That's what I'm saying. They could not go. It's not. They're to me that if this wasn't Vegas, I think based on pundits, they would have been insane to pick Vegas because I mean I went through it yesterday because I got so frustrated with our conversation and I found only 4 people, Kevin and I being 2 of them, that picked Vegas and about 45 that picked LA. So to me, the definition of a favorite is they were the favorite.
So okay, so let's throw it this way. There's a fan favorite But then there's a betting line favorite. And the betting line
about
is
the people who are picking the games. I know what you're saying, but I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be a jerk, but I'm just saying.
No.
I
don't think you're being a jerk back. I think
I might be, but
Kevin just walked off screen.
You're not wrong. I just think there's two definitions here. There's the betting favorite, who you're going to wager your money on, but then there's your logic favorite of like I thought LA was going to win. I thought I made them the favorite. So I think you're right, but I think there's two ways of looking at it. It just depends on what one you conform to.
I'm going on basically
looking at it are the right way and the wrong way.
No,
and
no.
I was looking at it.
The last thing I'll say, my last statement, Kevin, and then you will absolutely decide, and I will go with you. But my last
You
statement
already said it. How many times?
No, my last statement is this.
What is this? The
People
Florida
who are-
recount?
We're not talking about no. We're not talking. I'm going to say that is not admissible. The Vegas line, the draft, the Vegas line,
dangling chads all over again.
They have to do that because more people are picking the hometown team. I think that's perfectly legitimate. I think I can get that thrown out of court. All right,
they bet other places besides Vegas.
When people who have no skin in the game at all, but are hockey analysts this is their job to predict and pick who's going to win this. When 45 say that one team is going to win and 4 say the other team is going to win, that team is not. You have to say the team that 45 said is the favorite in this series.
First of all, I think that number is inflated. But second of all, again,
do you want me to bring it out? I can.
As I said yesterday, Kevin, when you're picking series as I did before the first round, you're always looking for, okay, what team is the dark horse that you think is going to win? And I'm sure that everyone who looked at this said, okay, Vegas, there's no history here. They're an expansion team. They've been put together. They had a great year, but this is the playoffs, not the regular season. And you've got the championship pedigree of Doughty and Quick and Kopitar, blah, blah, blah. So you go through it all and okay, this is the underdog that I think has the best chance to win. Not that they're the favorite and they were – Vegas won the division.
Every year there is a trendy upset.
That was Columbus. That was Columbus this year.
No, it's not.
That was Columbus. I really do believe that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see your point, but
I'm going to switch this though, Eck. We do have some.
You're not going to make Kevin, I need a statement. I need a definitive.
We're going to switch this. We have some fallout from the Flyers season because they had breakdown today. So here's what we've learned. Okay. Ivan Provorov's arm was actually numb in the third period of that last game, which is amazing that he was able. When I told people that he dropped his shoulder just to make that pass to get that goal, and that's really what he did because he was playing really with a bad AC joint. It's going to be 6 to 8 weeks for him. Peter Mrazek didn't say that he is not coming back, but he doesn't. but pretty much the thought was that feeling from him is he's not going to get tendered. So
here's the signal. He had his luggage at the locker closeout, so I think that means he's leaving.
His locker was taken away in Game 4 of the series.
Right. But here's the thing, though, and this is the part that if you're a Flyers fan, there's really nothing you can do. So Michael Neuwirth is going to have both hips scoped, and he's getting a new trainer. Okay, I mean, we have to laugh at the new trainer part, but he might need new hips. Anyhow, so that's Michael Neuwirth. Then Brian Elliott said he still might get some cleanup done, meaning, I guess, in his hip. And he did admit that he wasn't 100%. But literally, they're both under contract for next year. So going into next year, the Flyers can't move either one of these goalies, and they're not going to carry 3. These goalies will be back for Philly. Like, there's nothing.
Or I just to add on to this, Russ, the former Flyers goaltender, Steve Mason, is injured too. It's like everything that's come out of Philly in between the pipes doesn't matter where they go. And banged up.
And the only goaltender of memory that I know that had it was basically a replacement or reconstruction of his hip was Ray Emery, a former Flyers goaltender.
Gotta be something wrong with Bobrovsky as well, right?
Well, no, but the thing is, I mean, Russ, I mean, there must be a Roboda Island near Philadelphia because I have a feeling that what's going to happen with these guys, since they're having major reconstructive surgery, they could be placed on LTIR and you never see them again.
Maybe Neuwirth, but Elliott says he'll be back for camp. But I have a feeling they're both going to be back for camp. And if they're both back for camp and they're not going to be able to play the LTIR game, they're going to have to use these guys.
This is ushering in the Dustin Tokarski era in Philadelphia.
No, but the point here is for Philadelphia is And I think it's reasonable to say that Carter Hart is 2 years away.
Right.
And if he's 2 years away, then you have to find yourself a stopgap goaltender for the next couple years, because I don't think you can. You're not going to
do it this year. They're going to probably wait until after this year.
Carter Hart will be in the AHL this year. Is that what we're thinking?
He's not playing in the NHL this year.
The AHL. He'll be able to play in
the AHL. He will be the starter in the AHL. Yes.
Right.
And if he tears it up in the AHL and the Flyers are playing Dustin Tokarski and Giroux's scoring 100 points and they're losing 6-4, they're not going to bring Carter Hart up from the AHL.
I think they're trading. I think they're trading for another goaltender. I think they're trading for Jake Allen, or they're trading.
And what are you doing with the other contracts?
You're eating it. I think you're putting it on LTIR. That's what I think you're doing.
You would put them on LTIR. They will be healthy by training camp.
There's no guarantee. Russ, believe me, Stefan Robidoux was healthy. He was just
Neuwirth has a frequently clipped. Neuwirth has an LTIR card that has little punches in it, so I'm sure he's going to be fine. That's all. I mean, they're definitely putting Neuwirth on LTIR.
And then here's the last thing, Eck. This is not Flyers related. This is Slava Voinov related. I was watching. There's a lawyer on Twitter who was answering a lot of questions about the deportation, and so here's where the situation lies. He was under the tutelage of ICE. An ICE judge deported him. He went back to Russia on his own volition.
Right.
What this lawyer said is it's nearly impossible for anybody to get back into the U.S. with the crimes that he has, with the way he was deported, and because ICE is aware of him. And so, my feeling is he's not playing hockey anymore in the NHL.
Well, Kevin, this is the question I had, and I'm not an immigration lawyer or anything like that, but I would think it would be easier for a Canadian team to get him under contract and him to be a visiting player rather than somebody who tries to get some sort of resident alien status in the U.S. And that's why I think teams like Montreal or Vancouver or Toronto who need defensemen might have a leg up in terms of, because clearly it sounds like Voinov wants to
get into the U.S. He will be on the ICE list.
Right,
when I was at the Olympics, I was told that he had no chance to come back and play for any team.
Right.
Now, again, and he's still under suspension from the league too.
Yes,
he is. Even if there's teams interested, if he's under suspension from the league and he's still LA property, can they even talk about him?
Well, that was the thing
with LA, right?
That was the thing that when the report came out that 5 teams had contacted his agent. Yeah, the Kings still have his rights. He's not a UFA. He can't. They would have to. I believe it would be like Kovalchuk. They would have to trade for his rights. So if that's the case, then if 5 teams contacted his agent, unless they did it with the approval of the Kings, that's tampering.
Right.
Yeah, it is. That's what I was saying on Twitter to people, and they said no because he's not in the league. But I disagree.
No, he is still property though.
The bigger point is, one, as Russ said, he's still suspended by the league. So you have to navigate that minefield.
Right.
Then you have the PR minefield.
Yes.
I just can't see teams right now wanting to take on that PR minefield. Like at this point, maybe later in the summer, someone wants to when people aren't thinking about hockey, but it's not going to go away. We have a world that's changing faster than we can speak when it comes to abuse of women. And if the NHL really cares about this as an issue, it's going to say we did something faster than any other league did. We're going to stay with it and not buckle. And I think that's the right way to go. I don't think teams should even touch this.
Let me remind everybody that Slava Voinov was suspended before he was charged. The NHL suspended him just based on the evidence they gathered before he was even charged with the crime. Right. Now, what that says to me is if they had enough evidence in their mind to suspend him indefinitely, I think they'd have a hard time. And I agree with the whole idea that this would be such a PR nightmare for him that I don't think they would do it. But even bigger than that, based on what I was told at the Olympics, is he has no shot to get back into this country. So is he only going to play games in Canada?
Right.
So he will not be let into this country. He's self-deported.
Yeah, and if you're a team who is so bad off that you need to sign a player with this much baggage and this much craziness going around, you really have to examine a lot of other things about your team. Like that's to me, you've got to be able to find another option. I mean, this is just ridiculous. He's a talented guy, but it's absolutely insane.
not that they need a defenseman, but a team like Calgary back in the day, Brian Burke always would be the guy who would give a player a second chance.
This is not something Brian Burke would touch.
Right. I'm just saying that I think that they're, for the first thing first, and Kevin is right, the league would have to sign off on it. And if the league isn't willing to say, okay, you're off suspension now, then that ends it. I mean, then there's no point for any team trying to do their due diligence to find out whether they can get him back into North America to be able to play. But he is a valuable commodity, and in terms of a defenseman who has Stanley Cup winning experience, and there might be some team desperate enough to say, okay, we'll go down this road and we'll soak up the PR nightmare in this Me Too universe and see if we can make this work. But we'll see.
We'll move on, but I don't think so. To Toronto, Boston. And what I want to ask about this game tonight is this question to everybody: Who is worse off, or who is in more trouble if they lose tonight? Like, what team? Because there's things that have happened on both sides of this. Boston took some chances, and my argument was, Boston, they go out and they get Rick Nash. Rick Nash has been a disaster, pretty much.
What do you mean? What do you mean worse off? I mean,
I mean, who at the end after this has to do more re-examining of where they are? Like as far as this summer goes, like what team? Whenever someone's eliminated, we talk about there's repercussions, right? Yeah. These are two very good teams that probably shouldn't be playing in the first round. Mm-hmm. So, but I still believe that there could be repercussions on both sides here if they lose. Who has more repercussions? In other words, what do you think, Kevin?
Well, I guess because Boston had such an incredible season. And they weren't viewed like Toronto is still viewed as being in rebuilding mode,
right?
I think they still have a free pass. They're making progress. You can see the progress. You know what's happening. They're going to eventually get a defense to help them. So I think if they lose this, fans will sort of say, okay, well, we're not quite there yet. But in Boston, I think people are going to say, well, I thought we weren't just a hot team, we were a good team. And if we're a good team, we should have been able to survive a first round matchup in Toronto. So I'm sure there's probably a little more pressure on Boston at this point. And I really felt, Babcock had just handled this perfectly. His speech before the game about, especially for a young team, that's where he's masterful at.
Yeah.
We're going to Boston because I like clam chowder. And,
I loved it. I know.
Yeah, he just says the right things, and he sort of takes the pressure off. And this is fun, he says. Yeah, I saw it so many times in Detroit, and it's just perfect for this kind of thing. So I would say Boston has the most pressure, and if they lose this game, there are going to be some fans. On the other hand, I think fans are excited in Boston about this team.
Yeah, they are. I think there's still a lot of Rask haters. So if Tuukka Rask isn't 100% perfect this game and they lose, fans will be on him for that. Cassidy has never coached a Game 7. There's that. Cassidy had to deflect yesterday why Ryan Donato has only played one game, and he put in Danton Heinen in instead. He's got right now. It's amazing to me that usually the team, and I've been to a lot of Game 7s. Usually the home team has a little edge because they're a little bit more comfortable. It's their surroundings and everything else. And I feel like this team has more pressure than most teams do in a Game 7 because of how this season went and the fact that the Leafs have hung in there all series. Right. And now it's down to this. I think the pressure is on Boston firmly.
Well, okay.
Put that pressure on themselves by making the Rick Nash trade, because that's a kind of
no. I don't think it's all of it. Yeah, I mean, what they did was they were having a successful season, and they decided, okay, let's go for it. We've got a lot of prospects in the organization. We can afford to give up a first-round pick for a guy who is a legitimate top 6, although we've seen that he can't score like he couldn't score with Columbus in the playoffs or with the Rangers. But he's still a big body and an effective player. I think they did that. They did the move for Nick Holden. They did, added Tommy Wingels. It was just to add to the group that they have and to take a long run. Toronto, I think, saved themselves the major heap of criticism by winning the 2 games. But if they lay an egg tonight in Game 7 and it's the defense that's the problem, then I think the heat goes right back on Lou Lamoriello and Mike Babcock, because they fell short of getting Travis Hamonic last summer at the draft. They did not pony up significant assets to get Ryan McDonough like Tampa did. And if they lose because of their defense, I think they'll get a lot of criticism. Now, I think Babcock has done a good job, as Kevin said, but I do think that, coming up against a rookie coach or not a rookie coach, but he's coached only a few years comparatively to Babcock and his resume.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Babcock's reputation in Toronto will take its first hit because he's been sort of playing with house money because he's this legend. But, a lot of people in Toronto think this team is ready to win now or in the next year or so. And if they don't get by a team that a lot of people think they should have, then I think he opens himself up for a little bit of criticism. But I do think Boston, they were favored in this series. I picked Boston. They have the Stanley Cup pedigree. If they don't win this, then I think Cassidy and Don Sweeney maybe get a little heat.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to say that Mike Babcock bought himself some credibility with the last 2 wins. I don't think anyone expected the Leafs to put this to 7 after they were down 3-1.
Right.
And it's well known that the Leafs defense is deficient and is not a complete thing. And Babcock structured a game plan. He's adjusted his roster, and he's done it well enough that he's held Boston off. He's gotten a lot of luck from Freddie Anderson. That's kept him in, but his team scored enough goals to win. And he deserves some credit for that. And so I think the pressure is squarely on Boston. They should have wrapped this up. And even if the Leafs lay an egg, I don't even think it'll be that much on Boston or on Babcock, more so that there'll be more understanding of why they laid the egg, not because of Babcock, but because they shouldn't have, given the way they played the last 2 games.
I think the heat goes to Lamoriello and the management of the team, because they've known the deficiency for this team for the last couple of years, and they just have not been able or unwilling to trade what they need to trade to get that. And we know that defensemen are just, the price for them is ridiculously inflated. But if that's the price, you have to pay it, because you're not going to win with Jake Gardiner playing 27 minutes a night and Ron Hainsey killing every second of a penalty kill. It just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. All right. So let's jump ahead now to the series coming, because we definitely was Peters here and Kevin's here. I wanted to talk about Winnipeg and Nashville, because I think this is this is the premier series. Maybe not like ratings wise, but the premier series of the second round. And I know people are going to say Washington, Pittsburgh, but I think these 2 teams are better than those 2 teams. That's just my opinion. So
I agree.
I really do. I think I don't know. That's just. I think Winnipeg's very underrated, and I think the Nashville Predators, well, they showed they are the favorite by being the best team in the NHL.
I think this series is appointment television. I'm not going to purposely. I'm not going to miss a minute of it, because I think it's going to be that good.
So the only thing I have to say about the series before we go to Peter and Kevin thoughts on it are this. You know me, I'm always about what happened in the regular season. So these teams, they played 5 times. Nashville won 3 of them. Winnipeg won 1 in overtime. Winnipeg won 1 and 1. So basically the Predators won 3, the Jets won 2. One of the Jets wins was in overtime. Okay, so there you have it. But the incredible thing about that is they scored 44 goals in 5 games against each other. So that's 9 goals a game. For a team that has 2 of the finalists for the Vezina on these teams. So what does that mean, Kevin? I'll start with Kevin on that, because I wanted the Vezina thing. So Kevin, what does that mean in your thought?
I agree with you. I think it's going to be the best series by far for a variety of reasons. I don't put much stock into what happens in the regular season, because the teams are never quite the same. I've heard a lot of readers pointed out that, I took Tampa and didn't give New Jersey much of a chance to win that. And they pointed out how successful New Jersey was in the regular season. And I always say, yeah, that's right. But it was the regular season. Everything is different. Right. I expect the same will be true here. Like, I don't know that it will play out exactly the way it did in the regular season, but I like what I like about this matchup is it's, to me, the most dangerous offense. Like, I love the danger level of the Winnipeg offense, because they can do so much. Like they can come at you with speed. They have the big shot in line A, another big shot, a boomer from the point in Bufflin. They've got the guy, the Jonathan Taves style center and Scheifele. They've got, all the elements up front. And then they've got, Kyle Connor too, the young, they've got so many weapons up front. And what does Nashville have? They have the most talented defensive group. Like there's no other defensive group in the league that can match the skill level of that Nashville group. And they've got the ability to kind of hang with this Winnipeg group. And I think it's going to be good. And I think the Nashville went to school last year in the postseason when they lost to the Penguins. I think they learned a lot about what it takes to be successful in the playoffs. Yeah. And I think that's going to serve them well. And they reminded me in the first round, I watched them play, it reminded me of the Penguins. They weren't sharp. They were just kind of trying to build on their success as they kind of go along. And I think they learned that from the Penguins. And I don't buy into this whole idea too that Winnipeg isn't quite ready they're lacking in playoff experience, so they're not going to be. This is a very talented Winnipeg team, and I think everybody understands that. And I know the Predators understand that as well. And the goaltending matchup, it's going to be great. Pekka Rinne played better than he did last year, which is remarkable. And Hellebuck has been one of the top 3 or 4 goalies in the league all season long. So, this has got all of the elements of being just an incredible series.
I love it. What I'll add to that before we go to Peter, I'll add is I love what you said there, because I'm not really buying that the Jets aren't inexperienced either. I forget who it was. It was one of these old hockey writers I was talking to one time, and that's not you, but another old hockey writer.
Jesus.
Who said to me that there was experience, which helps in the playoffs, and then there's no experience, which helps in the playoffs. His theory was actually that if you have like almost no experience at all, he's like that, then you just go through the playoffs without any fear. And he says you go into it and you don't have to worry about baggage. He says some experience can be a problem. That was his theory. And I think what you're seeing in this series is exactly that.
Positive experience or a clean slate. Basically.
Yeah, a team with Winnipeg that they don't know from losing. They don't know the playoff pressure. They're just doing it. The Preds know the playoff pressure, have the experience. So go ahead, Peter.
No, I think that's bang on. And I one of the things that has been remarkably interesting coming out of Winnipeg and such is whatever Paul Maurice is doing to keep this team level-headed, and a lot of it comes from Blake Wheeler as well, who was just recently nominated for the Mark Messier Award, for the Leadership Award, is they don't dwell on things. They go right back to their game plan. They talk the same thing after a loss. They're somehow very committed to what's going on, to the process of winning and what it takes. They don't get too high when the wins come. They don't get too low when the losses come. They're incredibly focused right now. They're going to have to maintain that because Nashville is going to throw things at them that they have in the season that are just variables that they can do that other teams can't. When Nashville activates their defense, it's scary. It's absolutely scary what comes flying down the ice if you're caught in a bad thing. And just remember, the last game the Jets played in Nashville scored 2 shorthanded goals on the same penalty kill.
Okay.
They there's some weird history here just recently. The Jets are going to have to remember that. They're going to have to remember a little bit about what their strengths are and play to that, rather than thinking they have to play differently because it's the playoffs. And that's the biggest thing. I've said this on Twitter. I've said it in blogs. I still think the series is going to come down to who stays healthiest and which goalie plays best. And that'll be the deciding factor. Everything else, the teams can do so equally well. But if Enstrom goes down again, he's expected to start, it's going to play a role. If a Jets forward goes down, like a Scheifele gets injured, it's going to have a huge effect. And I don't think you can weather injuries against either of these teams if you start losing significant players.
And that's where I'm concerned when it comes to Winnipeg is Myers is not playing at 100%, but he'll play. Enstrom is probably not at 100%, and he'll play. And if they can stay healthy and last, then I think they have a decent chance of, making this a series. Whereas, Nashville, I think people, sort of discounted their abilities offensively because they played Colorado, who's not exactly known as a really good defensive team. But in watching and listening to that series a lot, it was more than just the number one line of Forsberg, Johansson, and Arvidsson. They were getting really good production out of a fourth line of Sissons, Bonino, and Austin Watson. So they're getting scoring throughout their lineup, and it's not going to be like last year where they were completely empty up the middle. I mean, they've got Johansson, Bonino, Turris, and either Sissons or Fisher as the fourth line center. I mean, they're scared. They're just as scary offensively as they are defensively.
That's a hell of a fourth line. I mean, let's put it out there. I mean, like Sissons last year had a hat trick in the playoffs at one point. Remember, Austin had a bunch of big goals last year in the playoffs, and then you're talking about Bonino, who's got just who's won 2 Stanley Cups, right?
I think Bonino is one of the toughest guys in this series. I mean, he's look. There's nobody like Bonino on Winnipeg. There's nobody playoff proven like him.
Right.
He's got 5 points in 6 games. This guy shows up. It's a big deal. Mike Fisher having him in the lineup, sure, it does a little bit. Mike Fisher has also got no points. So right now, I don't think he's a big factor. Nick Bonino is a big factor. Their centers are definitely a big factor. Their defensive depth is a big factor. And look, Ilya Tolvanen's like a spare part, but Laviolette at some point is going to throw him in there if he feels like he needs offense.
Well, he went to Salamaki instead of Tolvanen. And a guy like Kyle Turris, who was really good for Ottawa last year. I think he had a point in the first round. And that's a guy. Yeah, that's a guy who usually performs when it comes around to the playoffs.
If I'm Nashville, I've got to have the fastest lineup I need to have in there because I think that's how you can beat Winnipeg. Because while their defense is good, they are definitely susceptible, and I think that is their one susceptibility. Otherwise, it's pretty dead even.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I like the Predators' improvement on offense. They got into the top 10 this year in terms of their goal scoring. The one thing though is that other than Forsberg, they're not nearly as dynamic as Winnipeg. Winnipeg can in a 3 or 4 or a 5 minute span put unbelievable pressure on you by just game breaking plays, and Predators can't do that. Like Watson, you brought up him. He's a good story. Like he was their leading scorer really in the first round, and he had 7 points, and he's kind of stepped up and been a player. I think they really need Kyle Turris, who sort of went south on him during the regular season. He went through a long period where he just didn't do much. Like he didn't produce at the level they hoped he would to once he came over from Ottawa. They were expecting a little bit more from him. Not that he was horrible, but they expected that maybe he was going to kind of step up. And I think that's where they're lacking. Winnipeg just has a bunch of guys, and obviously I'm talking about Line A and Connor and Scheifele and Ehlers. I mean, these are guys that can kind of take over and just score a goal when there's when there doesn't seem to be anything there, and that's where Nashville lacks that. Now, saying all that, I've taken Nashville because I think their overall game and the fact that they learned so much last year is going to help them, but. I do not sell Winnipeg short. Like if Winnipeg won this series, I would not say, well, that's shocking. I think this could really go either way.
I'll wait till X picks to make my pick.
Well, to your point, Ek, though, about them during the regular season having 44 goals in 5 games, if it's that type of series, then it's advantage Winnipeg because their offense is more dynamic. But I have a feeling that Nashville, being the type of team that they are going to try to shut them down. Now, if it's more like, in a 7-game series, more like 35 goals, 5 goals per game, then I think it's advantage Nashville.
Good, Pete.
So I was just going to say, you talked about depth and stuff. So Sportsnet put up a center comparison, and they have Scheifele, Johansson, Stasny, Turris, Kopp, Bonino, Lowry, Fisher. Well, they forgot 2 other guys on Winnipeg. Brian Little and Matthew Perreault. I mean, the depth of the Jets down the middle is incredible, and so it is with Nashville. Like I think when you look at these,
like Bonino, that's the only thing, Peter. Until proven otherwise, he is going to put up points. He will.
Yeah. Now my question is this, Peter, because I was trying to figure this out. I was looking through stats. It's hard to find this stat, and there's a reason I ask it. Has Winnipeg this year been a good starting team, or have they come on as the game goes on?
They have come on as the game goes. And in fact, they've been a lousy team finishing in the first period for the first half of the season, giving up a lot of late goals. But I believe they are the best scoring team in the third period in the league. And I believe they actually fixed a bit of their first period things, but I haven't looked at it recently.
Yeah, I was trying to go through it, and I have this stat. I was just going to go, but the reason I say that is Nashville's key for me is always that they like to get out. They get out on you. If they get out on you in a couple goals, they shut things down.
And the funny thing is, against Colorado, they fell behind. I think the first 3 games.
That's completely against their ways usually and they aren't a great come from behind team. The Predators have shown bits of it, but they are really good shutting it down teams. So that's why I think the first periods are going to be.
This is a good coach matchup too, because I like both of these coaches. I respect them. I know 2 years ago, fans in Winnipeg wanted Maurice fired, but they didn't fire him, and he's the right guy to have there. Like, this is a good coaching matchup because neither guy panics, neither guy, does anything too harshly. I think, if anything, Laviolette's the one that does something crazy quicker than Maurice.
If we can't
real quick, and then I'm just finish my thought, Mike, and then go. I was looking at this. So the Jets have scored. Check this out. They have scored their percentage by period. 27% in the first, 25 in the second, 43 in the third. So that's the Jets, percentage by scoring this period. The Predators, 26 in the first, 46 in the second, and 26 in the third. So,
but that may be a function of them having the lead a lot because they had.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's not definitely, but then also a function of Winnipeg probably not having the lead or coming from behind. So they probably came from behind quite a bit. And I just think that's the story. Go ahead, Mike.
And taking advantage of the other team having the long change and catching them with with players out there for lengthy periods of time. Now transitioning to Pittsburgh and Washington, Kevin, the news came out about an hour ago. Mike Sullivan let it be known that in Game 1 in Washington, Evgeny Malkin and Carl Hagelin will not be in the lineup. When I saw Malkin get hurt in that Philadelphia series, I wasn't sure how severe that injury was. But if he's missing Game 6 and now he's missing Game 1, this is not like a tweaking injury. This is probably something serious. And to me, even though I still favor Pittsburgh in the series, that's an equalizer. Then they can zero in on Crosby and hopefully try to stop him. Not to say that they can, but it will be an easier task for Washington to be able to try to shut down Crosby without Malkin there.
Oh, couldn't agree more. Yeah, this is terrible news. I'm still going to take the Penguins as well, but this really evens it up. It really does because what makes Crosby even more dangerous is the fact that they have to worry about Malkin as well. And it was interesting. During the Philadelphia series, Sheehan got more benefit out of moving up when that happened as well. You would think that it was going to be Brassard, but it was Sheehan, who I thought played pretty well.
He had a great series, actually. You're right, Kev.
Yeah, he was strong and he's a good player. But the thing about Pittsburgh that is still the advantage for them, and I think it does, is their understanding of what it takes in order to win. Like, they don't panic and they lose games, but they're never out of it. And that's why I think they'll be able to survive this. And historically, when Crosby has been out, Malkin has played well. And when Malkin has been out, Crosby has been unbelievable.
That's true. That's very true.
It's going to be really interesting to see that. But and losing Hagelin is a big deal too. He's been instrumental in the past. Last year, not so much. This year in the playoffs, he's been better, and so now losing his speed is kind of a big deal for them.
Well, I think it's a concussion with Hagelin because when Giroux hit him and he came up and he was gushing blood, I felt like I think we'll see him later in the series. I think we'll see Malkin in the second game of the series. I do, but here's the thing: this is what I noticed in Pittsburgh for Game 6 against Philly. Kessel stepped up his game. Letang kept getting better and better. Jake Gensel stepped up his game. Like, they have so many guys. I still think this series goes to 7, but Pittsburgh doesn't care about losses. They don't. Matt Murray doesn't care about losses. It's funny because everybody wants to pick on Pittsburgh because their defense stinks, but they keep advancing, and everybody wants to pick on Matt Murray's health, and he's one of the best playoff goalies that we've ever seen.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing that's interesting about Washington. Flipping over to that side, Ovechkin scores 2 goals in game 6 against Columbus. They win a first round series for the second year in a row, and I think I almost pick up this year that the moniker of Washington being a choke team has faded away because Ovechkin scored some goals against Columbus. To me, I think that reputation of them falling short still stays in place until they beat the team that has beaten them consistently, and that's Pittsburgh. If they don't beat them, then you're still going to hear the same stuff about Ovechkin and about Backstrom and about that team that you've always heard. They can't beat that one team, and that's not something to be ashamed of because Pittsburgh's been great, but I still think that Washington is going to hear that unless they beat the Penguins.
They want to slay the dragon. It's all on Washington to do that.
I think they're going to. I mean, this is the first time in 9 straight series that I'm going to pick against the Penguins, but I am going to pick because I picked them in all the other series the past 2 years to win each series. But I'm going with Washington, and and it is partially the Penguins, and I know the Penguins can, they can really surprise you. The injuries don't help here, but it's partially the Penguins defense, which I was not impressed with. It's partially that I felt like if the Flyers had any kind of goaltending at all, that would have been a much more interesting series. And you've got Holtby, who is as good as it gets, and you've got a team that's 4-0 and lost the only 2 games they lost in the playoffs in overtime in Washington against a Blue Jackets team that was hotter than anybody at the end of the year. I mean, this Capitals team is the best the Capitals have been playing going into a Pittsburgh series.
Crystal Tang just texted me and said thanks for picking Washington.
I know. That only happens with the Devils. The Devils are the one. The Devils, I'm always wrong on. I missed them in this. They're the only first round series I missed so far. I've got Toronto tonight, but we'll see. But
great.
But they're the only. But Toronto's like New Jersey. I'm always wrong on. But But yeah, the fact of the matter is, I honestly think this is the best the least amount of pressure because people are tired. I think the moniker of them being chokers is just it's just a boy cried wolf thing. I think people are just tired of it. You can only choke so many times before people don't think you're any good.
They've had the best goal scorer of a generation, and they can't get past the second round. I'm sorry.
People are like they're just not going to, and
that's what
people are. So I think that's why this plays into it really well. I mean, Trotz didn't try to create this, but by going with the other goalie in the beginning, but he actually did create a really interesting, good situation for them. Because
if it holds, I mean, it has to hold.
Yeah.
Holtby is undefeated. Think about that. I mean, it's like there's a lot. This is kind of I don't know.
I really think Pittsburgh cares about that. Come on, man.
I don't think they're as good as they've been. I think that
they outscored Philly 18-6.
It's 2:00.
Anybody would have. Yeah, there you go. There's the famous clock. But everybody would have outscored Philly 18-6. Okay? That's not like.
I'll take a bomb pop.
Kevin.
Okay, you're unmuted, Kevin.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? On what I was saying there, Pittsburgh and Washington.
Kevin, are you there?
Wait a minute. I had some issues there.
Oh, sorry, no problem.
Okay, what was your question? I'm sorry.
No, it's just so you're still thinking Pittsburgh. You heard my great argument.
Just because I really like. They've now won 36 playoff games in the last 25 months.
Right.
They really understand. They've scaled the mountain twice. They know the way. And Crosby and Kessel and Letang, and those guys are the greatest Sherpas ever. They know the way. They know how to get up there, and I think you can't underestimate the value of that. And I still think they have enough there. And I think Malkin, this is just a guess on my part, but what I thought was, well, maybe he had some sort of sprain where you could play on it initially, and then there was swelling, and they're kind of waiting for it to go down. And but that's just.
I get the idea it's precautionary too with Malcolm, Kev.
I mean, based on their championship pedigree, I am not picking against Pittsburgh until they face Tampa Bay, and then even then, it's probably a 7-gamer. So I mean, because I think Tampa Bay is good enough to beat them, even though they don't have the 2 straight Stanley Cups.
Washington's better than Tampa. I really think Washington's a better team.
Not a chance, Zach. I'm sorry. Washington compared to last year has been completely gutted.
Yeah,
they don't have a. Sorry, go ahead.
You got to give them credit for what they just did. I mean, Columbus is a hell of a team. Columbus is not. They're not a bad team.
Nobody's saying Columbus is a bad team.
Yeah,
everybody's saying Columbus choked. I don't think they did.
They did. They were up 2-0.
They were up 2-0 on overtime goals.
I mean,
what? It was still 2-0.
It doesn't matter. 2-0 is 2-0. That is a choke.
Right.
That's the definition of a choke.
Yeah. Let's switch over to the series that nobody's.
Peter. I wanted Peter on.
I'm sorry.
Washington, Pittsburgh. Yes.
I'm going Pittsburgh. I just think there's and I'm doing this.
Peter, thanks for your opinion, Peter. We appreciate it. We'll go on now to Vegas and San Jose. I'm just kidding.
For all the Capitals fans, because I was so wrong about Vegas, LA, I'm going to pick Pittsburgh, hoping that the same thing happens, because playoff pedigree, experience, knowing how to win, Matt Murray, you name it, all those reasons, all that stuff. And you know what I think, and honestly, they should. And I'm just doing this for you, Caps fans.
Now, switching to Vegas and San Jose, Kevin, I get the impression now that Vegas, since they beat the Kings, the people who are skeptical, like me and like Russ, will now say, okay, they beat the Kings. Now I think they can beat the Sharks. What do you think?
Well,
is that
I thought they could beat the Kings, and they did, and I think they're gonna beat the Sharks as well. But saying that, like, the Sharks are not getting enough credit.
Right.
They played very well, and to be honest, the Sharks offense can be more dangerous than the Golden Knights offense. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that works out. But this is going to be, despite the fact we have great goaltending matchups in the other series, I think this one may be the best. Fleury and Jones, like this, that's a great matchup.
That's a great matchup.
I mean, you're talking about one guy that's got, I think it's 0.65 goals against average, and the other guy's at 1.00 in that first round. They're both coming off sweeps. I think it'll be a nice series, but I'm taking Vegas. Like they have played a playoff style brand of hockey since the opening minutes of the season, and they've been able to sustain it all this time. They're not going to change now. They're an attacking team,
right?
And they build off that energy that they get by the hard forecheck and playing with a lot of passion and determination.
Now, I heard, and there's been some hints that Joe Thornton might be ready to come back at some point in this series, and I've also heard some skepticism about, well, we won convincingly without him, and if he comes back at less than 100% and he's slow and he's this and that do we really want to bring him back? I mean, I think if he can play, if he can skate, he should be in there, because I think he helps San Jose, possibly achieve their goal.
Well, he's one of the greatest passers in NHL history, so for sure. So go ahead,
Kev.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that you definitely want to bring him back. But how good is he going to be? He's obviously going to have some rust on his game.
Right.
I look at San Jose, and I like the centers they have. There's no question. And actually, Eric Fair's done pretty well for them, Mike. I know. Probably makes you chuckle, but it's true. They've got great left wingers now. I mean, with Kane, Hurdle, Timo Meyer, like that's a lot to handle. Jones, I think him and Fleury neutralize each other. Fleury might be slightly better, but they neutralize each other. But I just, knowing that San Jose is going to get Joe Thornton back at some point, I think is going to fuel them, and I do think they're going to win a tight series. I'm going to pick San Jose in 7. I am. I think this is a team that is waiting for Thornton to come back.
Right.
And if they just keep it equal or they stay a game up, they'll be in good shape. And I think that's what they can do.
Peter, what do you think?
Sorry, just unmuting here. I think it's going to be Vegas in 6. I've stopped betting against them. Vegas in 6. I'm a believer.
Okay.
I think they're going to do what they've always done and just keep pushing that play. They're relentless in their puck pursuit, and their gap control through the neutral zone is astounding in the way Gallant
defense is better than the Kings defense, though.
Absolutely. Sharks defense is better than the Kings defense. I still think Vegas is going to win in 6.
Just a couple notes. The Pierre Dorian and Guy Boucher will be talking in Ottawa sometime this week. There's still question marks regarding whether Boucher will be retained as Senators coach. Kevin, Bill Peters goes to Calgary. That's not a big surprise, but I think the bigger surprise is just the whole Carolina situation. I really think that Carolina looks bad in this whole scenario. Now they have no GM, no coach, and to me, no direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably it was the right move for both parties. I mean, he had been there long enough. They had made the playoffs. You got a new GM coming in. Like it was the right move for him to go, and I think it was the right move for Carolina not to stand in his way, because the new GM was probably going to want to bring his own coach in anyway.
Right.
So I just think I know what you're saying. They seem rudderless right now, but I think once they get it all together, I think they'll be fine. I still like their talent base, but they've got to get a number one center, and they've got to get a goalie. Like the Darling experiment was the biggest disaster of last season. I don't know another free agent that didn't perform that caused the biggest problem for that team last year.
And they have the assets within the organization, Russ, to go out and trade for that goalie or trade for that scoring, because they're loaded on defense, and we know that defense is a commodity. So I mean, whoever that GM,
who's gonna make the trade for that defense or that goalie? Who's gonna, I don't know anything about what Carolina's doing other than what I said that Tom Dundon said on that interview the other day.
Right.
That's all we have. That's all the fans have. It's amazing. It's 2 months later, and they don't have a coach or a GM or a direction.
Yeah. Now, Peter, last thing, you had an update on Patrick Laine for Game 1.
So Patrick Laine he practiced yesterday for a little bit and left early, and then he did not practice today. And Sarah Oleski tweeted out that Paul Maurice said he should be ready for Game 1. So that's a little bit of a development that I don't think anyone expected. The term malaise has been thrown around recently in Winnipeg, so I'm wondering if that's a bit of code for flu.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But that was, I don't think anyone really thought that was a possibility for Game 1. So just an update there.
I don't know. I get malaise when I watch too much Netflix, so perhaps it's like it could be anything. Could be anything.
And quick note: Mike Babcock, Leo Komarov has been out of the Leafs lineup since Game 2. He skated previous to Game 6. He's been diagnosed as being healthy enough to return. It's just a question of whether Babcock wants to mess with a lineup that's won the last 2 games. So this morning at the morning skate, he mixed him in with another winger, and we don't know whether he'll go with. I have a feeling he's going to go with Komarov because it's a guy he trusts, and we know Babcock likes to put in veterans that he trusts. So I have a feeling that somebody's going to come out, and Komarov will come in for Game 7.
It makes sense. There could be some interesting movement on the Minnesota coaching thing, but I'm not going to get into it yet. But I think that's going to move pretty quickly. But I was just texting back and forth with a few people on that. But I don't think it's going to take as long as it took in Carolina, put it that way, for the GM, not the coaching, but the GM job.
Well, for either now.
Yeah. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with Vegas and San Jose. Vegas is the obvious favorite.
Well, we got another day to think about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to think about that a little bit more, but I'm not quite
Why
sure.
don't you put it through the computer, Act?
That's nope, I don't do that anymore. Not in the playoffs. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Everyone enjoy yourself out there. Have a nice day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy Game 7.